Ah, I think we are on verse number 102. Dini sunam geche tela chuang rimende Serkong Godu Yemena Tela Dani Mine Sam 102, please.
But what if someone should obstruct my gaining merit? With them, too, it is incorrect to be angry. For since there is no fortitude similar to patience, surely I should put it into practice.
Da de ma do lo na da de ni jimba de chudun lo su sonam de ge je chwa chena sa. Da la chomi ri de sonam de tendo nye wan tendo nye na chwa de soba de chongxin. Tendo nye na sa chwa soba de chongxin. Nya be ko tu xian ye ba mi na da ni soba de la mi ne su xin do ne ba ri so. Da 계산 ranzu jikdin 때 지게다 때라 당걸로 손바당 된제기 샘기 캠벌레베이나 근데도 먼저 최초로 파제레스 디 jikdin 추제기 다 지게 삼로도서 먼저 쳐버지나 냐버도 디 까고 그래스 캠벌 lep주디요 말레스 소문나신 다 되네 지기 저버들 맞수 저제 커지기 되네 다 신발람이에요 소소 삼도다요 봐 더 제정가 아니 다 달라 내len셔봐 아니 지기 요새를 가르치는스나 아니 라니 소놈 사발라 아니 객치기요나 디 텔레야 아니 뽕고고요 봐 내len셔고요 그래서 빼나 지긴 취지네 신데스 다단데 다게 아니 소소게 지게 소놈로 소버도 저디 진바도 출연로 소도 소놈 사버도 졸려야 바로도 주고도 봤어 이 집에나 아니 달라 내len셔버디 지금 말해베스 지제 삼로도 코르시그레스 다디 삼로 되는 야바르도 아주 고급디 가르송 그러시나 야바르도 안에 소놈 사야디 다 삼로스당 뭐라면서 소놈 가르치는 사비가 쓰지 아니야야 개치셔디 소놈 사세야 될 이지도 고도가 냐라면서 어제단 디나로는 아주 소놈 켈링교의 시작 레준데 켈링교의 시작제 송셔요 다딩 란츠기 냐라 야바라도 아니 지기 레준데야 규단 지구기 남샤디 라고 지기 체디 점지 게지마인가 단다 강은 충분히 개왕내매기 레지기 돕기다 아니 단다 강은 사다 사심보다 아니 지기 삼로당당 지기 야고지던 도자주 가르 충분히네 대다 탐지 고 추세매가 지구 민주 요거지 삼로 야고지 코르소나 이 템부지스 토베이나 아니 신의 랜디 잡도도가 저는 아니 소놈사세디 게제 시드 아니 소놈사에 고급디 쇠bat 곰메아디 차데도스 가전스나 소나망국 진바다 추림도 쇠발 진바 추림 라서부터 쇠바 받던베 정말로 소놈사에 고급 친구지레스 이나양 쇠바나신 거듭된 곳서직 균이요 말이스 쇠바 거듭 땡 쇠바 더비 거듭 메슬라바 셔단다비 디고메 쇠바다비 거듭 메슬라비요 남겨 이제 거듭 시두점베 코 갈래하고 싶지 샘디 축듯이 깨바당 아니베 아조마소네 소남 시부지 사료 참물로 베 육직래 육마 아니 지게 톨라서 그러베 다 짜면도 동안에 이 니버 침부 시부지 차도 열어. 늦어 참으로 열었을 때도 좀 아주 미 통해매다. 지금 소소 지금 니시 정말 돼 뒷간이 알아서 상황. 나중에 니시 정해랑 아주 내가 지쳐 봐. 어다디인도 다 간단한 저 디나로라다 간다. 세종 것도 유명이나 안텔라다니 미네섬 시두즈메 미네 코할니그메 베스라나 소놈 딘제 사이고 고급디건 니그메 베스에서 놓치리. 다디 주어디 땅 다디 예번 주어디라 레 탭투야 되라 운내기 딘제기 소놈 사베 고급 딩 얘기 낸토고도 그랬어. 내 딘제 소놈 사이 고급 내면 투모도 세디 내 당부 이제요 되메리. 어디 아주 나발도 아주 내 당부 아주 딜 쉬우주 슈자고 해주셔.
Hang on a sec. And so then in relation to verse 102 from the root text, then I'll read from the translation of Gyaltsab Je's commentary, which Rinpoche did. And it says, the argument goes that it is unsuitable to be angry at obstructions to worldly dharmas. Enemies obstruct them, though it's unsuitable to be angry at obstructions to the worldly dharmas, as we discussed before. Enemies obstruct the merits of generosity, morality, of ethical discipline, etc. So if one gets angry like that, the answer to that sort of argument that we bring is, if one does get angry like that, it is unsuitable to be angry at them, because if one aspires towards merits, then wouldn't one abide in patience, since there is no other austerity or sort of practice that equals patience with equals having patience with anger. It is extremely suitable to abide or to remain in this practice of patience. And so when we talked earlier, we talked about the, we were talking about how we receive worldly praise and renown from others, and how it's how it becomes if we get all puffed up and full of ourselves because of that praise, then that becomes an obstacle to Dharma practice, and that is that's something that we have to avoid, necessarily avoid in our Dharma practice. So here, what the argument goes in this in relation to this verse, that my enemies are preventing me from causing obstacles and preventing me for me to be there are obstacles for me to be accumulating merit. And so, okay, maybe not the 8 worldly, maybe the sort of the 8 worldly dharmas. Okay, I can understand why it's not angry at obstructions to the worldly dharmas is I shouldn't get angry, but here the enemy is preventing me from accumulating merit through practices such as generosity, ethical discipline, enthusiastic perseverance. And so therefore, isn't it okay to be upset or impatient, angry with them, because they're preventing me from doing these positive merit accumulating practices? But then we have to sort of ask ourselves, how do we accumulate merit? And why do we have to think about how we accumulate merit, and why we need to accumulate merit? And in relation to particularly to these topics, then we have to have a sort of trusting faith, which understands which understands how understands the idea of merit, and how and in relation to that, the context of accepting the law of the karmic law of cause and effect, that which then on the positive side helps us to accumulate merit. So we have to have a sort of strong, in order to understand the accumulation of merit, we really have to understand how from from all of our previous lives actions, karmic actions that have been performed, whether they are good or bad, then we have to have this kind of trusting faith that none of the karmic actions that we have performed go to waste, and that they will produce their results. And then we have to, and if we can have a stable kind of trusting faith in that, and therefore that if we perform positive karmic actions, then we will accumulate merit and receive positive results. If we can get stable on that, then I think we can answer the point that's being made here. But it's important to that's an important underpinning to this verse, and that and accumulation. When we're talking about how to accumulate merit, or what's, it says in the text here that all the other perfections, such as generosity, ethical discipline, etc., are definitely practices which help us to accumulate great merit. But in relation to, in contrast to those, there's nothing more. There's nothing which allows us to accumulate greater merit than the patience is the finest practice in allowing us to accumulate merit. So it says in the root text, there's no worse negative action than anger. There's no greater practice or practice of austerity than that of practicing patience. And so these are, of course, a little bit, we can't see that definitively in front of us, but we need to be able to have some kind of definitive ascertainment of the fact that this is the way it is, and that this is about the karmic law of cause and effect, and how we accumulate and positive merit through the practice of patience. And so in the last two lines of verse 102, it reads, for since there is no, so I've read it. So since there's no fortitude similar to practice, similar to patience, surely I should put it into practice. So, and this is what so this is the answer for us. For beginners, it's difficult because we don't have trust in all of these things. We don't have a kind of trusting faith, which is sort of underpinned by understanding. And so it's difficult for us, but that's what we need to be able to have in order to answer these kind of questions which have been brought up.
제장당 알아줘 레 줌제스네다 소남사스네다 아니 지게 당 알아줘 남샤균도 커도 통해매비 최망보지 알아줘 단 아바상지비기 이지 지기요 대인도점에다 커도 통해요 말이데 이나양 고 네버도 깨고를 세티 규딘지 최선은 저부디 네버도 깨녀레세 기타 아주 리베르게 지금 그래 아니 롱로 때문에 요래 다 당보 마란족이 섬로 망치에 가르던 거였으라베나 녀랑 아주 로도 직세 되고지요래 로도 또지 세 되부디 아니 마세브체 리베람네 땡지 마세브체 아니 람상 코란 지기 가르소래 레준들 지기 요르스 이제 라마 자신부 지기 송 아니 지기 소소 이지 진행 최제 남상 코란 지기 인샤샤도 이제 제샤야 되게 아니 땡부기입니다 와 저는 저기 대바들라 당외 대바스 좀진기 제소 장을 대바스티 제상 저를 뭐 지기 말하는 단다 빈득주된 게 선대고 탐한데나가 아니 가르송자스나 체매 장배 겹숨 대바된 세티 저장가다 겹숨을야 대바제단데 겹숨이 연된 통했던 대바제단 요래 아니 단당은 좀 값수 밥에 잡아 차야 돼다 소놈사세고 요래 개와 치마를 지기 개와 뒤자마지 개와 치마를 삼아당 거지 계제디 시험도 전에 레준들이 이지진예베 토네 아니 잠도 채고야 들어봐 체 아주 잠도 채야 돼 세디기 쳐도 점로 치고요 말봐. 점로 쳐야지 가진스나 한 디니 치마 도스만 루드 점베 캡셔서 캐라마도 민두스. 루어메브 캐라를 자세지. 딜레도 점베 아니 신에 딱겨와 치마다한테 저를 이제 정신이 레온도 점베 대다리 기분 누가다 아니 다 니지게 라마산지 마도 민두세기 깨졌디 달래본도 never 동아란 저기 단단한 저기 대바들이야 지금 필터지 제제 짱나지 쇠제
알아요.
지쇠제 아란주 강한 유에베게 대바들이야 개치니 숙축부지 대바 요말을 요 말 대바 요리 이내 대바들이야 바로도 주행기 다삼로 숙축부지 가려서는 아주 얘나 매나 세선도 지요리 디 말아주 답해 동안 tunjurgi 대솜지가 바뀌어 도지 대솜 나는데 tunjurgi 대솜 봐도 게 되네 거로지니다 페이지 디마돈 로사메도 셈제 삼나로도 슬레드 잠베네 딜라 아니 디기 타만델라다 란주기 남제는 송데리 버티 남제는 로링에는 깨와 디다 치마다 참 리비두 디 슈글라 아니 리우니베 나로려야 이 신에 저기 산지 좀 된데 체매 기부 임바데 이 좀전에 하고 싶을 지금 탐만들 너무 경험도 좀 아니 좀 된디 라야 이제 제베나 좀 된디 루어요 말에서 이게 세디 갈라서나 아니 코알레 대버를 지주 유베게 타블람 딘데 짜침부 송바 딘데 짜침부 송바디 니 따제 지는 딜 루어 메도스 데가 톱 시버리셔 데다 시버지리셔 딘데도 아니 이게 산지 좀 된들라 대바도스 제베인스 데인도 산지기다 레준데 타신이 타와 송바 델라양아 이제 유스지
알아요.
딜리기도 와 땅아란솔 딜레 도데 레준데 타신 타와를 이제 유베 선로 남주시 때 이나야 다 지금 로도 균이 캐기요 말에 더바 균이 캐기요 말에 더바 유여를 따고 레시 더바 유베 내가 될라 말한저 그뒤이네 아니 잠로 지에베이네 칸도엔 게조 지에베네 알레 산제 조즈마르 덴베이네야 세미나르 이쿨굴 기타바세 지금 그요와 이쿨용해야 되지 요 말다 온들레르 비지 유여베이네 야고 쇼주 용서로 봐 최산다 덴데 주여베이나 안 덴데 될라 미들라 아니 따단다 칙디 시부지 수고요래 다 덴제게 서버 고미야기 고급 자신분들 잘로마도 요 말에 아니 결혼 뒤에 가서 우리 텔라다니 미네섬 시두잔베니 가서 그래 대 초와 서버도 총신 냠베 거투 신여바미나 다니 서버텔 미네섬 다 서버 고미야디 고급 상부지레미도 해야 되는 신이 고관이 돕사르바
and so this in terms of relation to this verse again, verse of 102 and the karmic, and so in terms of things like the karmic law of cause and effect and accumulating merit, these are things that we can't, these are the kind of phenomena that the Buddha has spoken about on many occasions, but it's not something that we have a sort of trust in them, but it's not something that we can see we can't see directly, but we have a sort of this kind of trusting faith in it, but it's sort of but we need to have a kind of we need to have more than that kind of trusting faith. We need to have a kind of the kind of decisive certainty that really cuts through and understands these things. And these kind of topics are spoken about, are supported by reason and also by scriptural quotations as well. For us, we've kind of got it a little bit upside down or mistaken in the sense that we have a kind of mistaken way of engaging with this, because we tend to engage with these very subtle topics such as the karmic law and effect, and then also in relation to that accumulating merit in a way that we sort of quite quickly develop faith towards them. But actually you know, one of our great teachers or someone a highly respected teacher of ours teaches us the subject of karmic law of cause and effect, and it's easy for us to gain some sort of immediate trust or faith in that, but it's not stable, and it's not the kind of we talk about tangwei there, but the kind of what's literally called clear faith. Now, clear faith is a faith which is underpinned by strong kind of logical reasons. And so when His Holiness wrote the praise to the 17 Nalanda scholars, at the end of that praise, after discussing the qualities of the great qualities of all the scholars, he uses a series of lines where he talks about how refuge in the three jewels, we have, because we take refuge in the three jewels, underpinned by, which is brought on by, because of the decisive ascertainment through valid cognition. So it's not just about, it's not just about sort of hearing about the qualities of stuff, but actually really decisively penetrating to those qualities, and then having faith based on, which is based on kind of valid cognition. And so here, in terms of accumulating merit, in this, we have in this life, and if we understand the law of karmic cause and effect, for instance, then in this life and the next life, refuge is, when we talk about taking refuge is not about this life. Refuge is the sense that we need a protector to help us, of course, in this life, but it's essentially for when we go beyond this life to future lives, and all future lives, we need a kind of a refuge and protector. And then so we imagine our gurus, as the great masters and the gurus, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, as though as being those we imagine that only you are the ones who can help me in all my lives, not just temporarily. And we have to, so our faith needs to, okay, we have a sort of a little bit faith in that, but our faith needs to go through needs to be filtered out. We need to clarify our faith a little bit. We have, it's not that we don't have faith, but our faith is really sort of, it's kind of unstable. It's sort of, we may wonder from time to time, we may wonder, is it this or is it that? Is it really like this or really like that? And we need the faith, this clear faith, which is underpinned with reasoning, which really says that this is the way out of all this. This is, because a taba toba yerba taba top siba didwa. Yeah, so you can, this is the way to, this is the path to liberation. The path, liberation is possible. We have to get to that kind of faith, which is underpinned with reason. And in Dharmakirti's Pramanavartika, in the first chapter, it discusses all the different ways of reasoning. And in the second chapter, there's an extremely important section which discusses the Buddha being a kind of valid being, a semi-gibbu. It's called semi-gibbu, the kind of valid being, a reliable and valid being. And essentially, what we do is to summarize all that very briefly, is to talk about having the faith that the Buddha is essentially what he's taught us, and he's an undeceptive person. What he's taught us and the Buddha himself are undeceptive. So the way that we engage with this is not to immediately start, as we a little bit tend to do with topics such as faith in the karmic law and cause and effect, which are very subtle, and then think, yes, that sounds right. But we should go to the detailed teachings that the Buddha gave on the great path to liberation, and then we should check through those reasons whether that is possible or not. And then when we ascertain that it is possible, that this path is possible and this is the way, then we develop faith. After that, we develop faith in the things like the karma. Having understood that we see the Buddha to be undeceptive in relation to the path to liberation, which is obviously already quite a subtle matter, then we develop trusting faith in the Buddha, and that when he spoke about other matters which are much more subtle and difficult to directly see, then we have, such as the karmic law of karmic cause and effect, then we have this sort of trust and refuge in him, and when we practice it, and then when we have that kind of faith, when we're practicing and doing refuge, the refuge and the faith in the three jewels, the Buddha and the three jewels, is something which kind of stirs our mind to practice, to really encourage or stir our mind to practice, and so then we can understand, with all of this background, then we can understand sentences, such as that I should, for instance, the last line of 102, where it says, there's no fortitude, is talking about how the enemy is actually the supreme object of the practice of patience, and also that for accumulating merit, and therefore, then if we can understand all these things in this way, we can, understand there's no fortitude similar to practice and patience, and surely I should put it into practice. And then Gyaltsab J says to us, so it's unsuitable to be angry at our enemies if one aspires towards merit, because there's no other austerity that equals patience. Having patience in the face of anger, there's no greater austerity that equals that in terms of accumulating merit. So we should abide. It's suitable to abide in the patience of practice.
That in verse number 103. Kede dani rangyunji tela soba mechena sonam gyuni nyereneva tela dagi chebar says. 103, please.
If due to my own failings I am not patient with this enemy, then it is only I who am preventing myself from practicing this cause for gaining merit.
No, dirishada. Normally we somehow when we are facing a problem with the anger issues, then in the West, maybe probably it's out of control. There's nothing much, maybe a medicine to eat or something, I don't know. But here, we shouldn't, as a Buddhist, we shouldn't give our anger and any kind of excuse, especially the person who took a bodhicitta vow, and who believe or who has a faith and who supports the view of Bodhisattva. So those people, whenever a small, when you see now there's a danger of this anger coming up, then automatically you have to bring the patience in. When you are bringing the patience, it doesn't mean I have to hold it. And that is not a patience actually. Why? Because it's not a patience, it's not a practice actually. It it is more like you are in His Holiness Dalai Lama's teaching, and then you wanted to go to the washroom very very urgently, but with the kind of nervous people looking at you, oh, where this person going? So that kind of a thing becomes a kind of pressure in you, and you are halting. So then during that time, whatever you are doing is not a practice. It is you pressuring yourself, feeling like I have to do it. And we have to ask ourselves, where is that pleasure when I'm having this kind of intolerance? Where intolerance is
Yes. Super,
yeah. When I'm practicing this patience. So you have the answer, but I strongly encourage you, even this kind of a pressure is needed, but we don't call this as a patience. But this is just starting, that we need it. But at the moment when you are having this kind of having this kind of practice of patience, you can say I'm practicing patience for sure, but you are not completely having the successfully practicing the patience, because there's no joy. So when there is not that kind of joy, you're feeling like I have overcome this anchor myself, and now I feel so relieved. Then it becomes the pressure, the practice. That is the pleasure we needed during the time of our practice. So then automatically nobody has to tell you, oh, you have to bring the patience in. No reminder needed. So the here the verse number 103 is telling, let me read it a little bit and it will be more clear. Dane to shechevis rangyunji dadil soba mechena dad de sobe sonamji gyune nyawar neba tela chena dani sonamji geg shego parugoli parugu geg me geg maino. It is the person sitting in front of you that we so-called enemy. If I am looking for an opportunity to build the strongest, strongest positive merit accumulation.
Accumulate the greatest amount of merit. A great amount, a great wealth.
A great amount of accumulating merit.
Accumulate a great amount.
What happened to my English now? Okay. So that opportunity is in front of you, and that person is someone like we call him an enemy. That actually that person in front of you is it's similar to like a stupa. In a Tibetan, we make some we call stupas. There's so many stupas are there. So why stupa is very important? Because we call bodhicitta is important, and that bodhicitta, if we represent, that is this stupa.
Embodied in the stupa.
Embodied stupa.
The laptugure.
어디로 전제레스 봐. 최대한데 전주 있는 전제레스.
Yeah, it's sustained or influenced by bodhicitta.
If we can say that, and why cannot you say that the enemy in front of you, that you are seeing the body only, who is giving you the opportunity to giving you opportunity,
Accumulate.
whether there is an intention or not, that's the second thing, but there is an opportunity in front of you to build, accumulate a great amount of merit. And for that, this kind of the enemy's body, you can see. How cannot you say this is also stupa? And that's why we normally say the enemy is one of your best teacher. So it's the same thing, the stupa. The real stupa, which is the concrete thing, you go, you believe this is so consecrated and so blessed, so many memories in there, so much kind of blessed things are there. This is how you take it. But the enemy is kind of always, he can talk. He can make your practice much more stronger. That's if you are not practicing, you don't need that. If you are practicing, you need this. It's like Adisha when he went to Tibet. Of course, Adisha sometimes gets annoyed, but many Tibetans get annoyed by the person who was accompanying Adisha in Tibet, whom Adisha purposely invited him.
Yeah.
So then people always ask him, why did you bring this annoying person with you? Then with the folded hand, Adisha's answer is, he's the kindest person towards me. So how cannot I bring him with me? So that's a great teaching, great teaching. For Adisha, it's very easy. For us, it's difficult because Adisha see this as something taking full advantage of that person. But for us, we cannot take the advantage because we don't have a strong belief in the merit and how to use the merit, and you don't have a strong kind of a faith in there, how merit works. So this is just I have been speaking English for quite a long time, so I hold this opportunity to to not forget the English. Okay, now we are moving to verse number 104. 강시 강미 민중라 강시 유나 유유바 티니 티 유이나 지다텔라 계획시 차서 104, please.
If without it something does not occur, and if with it it does come to be, then since this enemy would be the cause of patience, how can I say that the enemy prevents it?
Now this is the one of the one of the greatest logics. It comes from the Parmana.
Yeah, in Pramana, Dharmakati's Pramanavartika, the complete compendium of logic.
now people who studied Pramanavartika, they really understand why this Pramanavartika is very important. Because if it's not important, then why will Shantideva bring this in this very important topic? 디르도 다직려 로셔고 쇠베 소남 간지 뇌제바 강 양매나 미중로 뇌제기 다 강시 요는 쇠베 소남 여버기와 다 티니 소남디 제존 로도 예비 유이나 지다텔라 게 셰자와 펜 도제 게소 미릭소스.
I'll read that first and then
Yeah.
And then you. So this is from the Gyaltsabje's the Gyaltsabje's commentary to verse 104, and it says the merit of patience does not arise when there is no harmer, no one who's causing harm. When there is an enemy,
What happened to Simon? Is he meditating? Meditating on patience. That he is giving us opportunity to to meditate on patience now. I think he's lost connection. Oh yeah, he's back.
hey.
Welcome back.
Welcome to the land of Geo. Shall I just read that? Did you hear that? Shall I read it again? Read it, yeah. It says, the merit of patience does not arise when there is no harmer, no one who causes harm. When there is an enemy, then the merit of patience exists. If this very enemy is the definite cause of the merit, then how could it be called an obstruction? That which is conducive or beneficial is not suitable to be called an obstruction.
다 매나 민중기 자와세티 다 아주기 남셔균도 다스당 백걸이야 수승기 남샤 시기요래 수승 나로네 아니 지기 자와세티 시기요 자와텔이야 다진지다 대충 제세지 다단다 될이야 대충 제게제디 시험도 준비 매나 민중세트리 아마데 매발로 치마디 연구말했지 딩네버도 롤이 샤르고야지 디기 롤을 샤르에체도 아니 아주 나나가지고 대단하라 주제 매여도 도와이 왜 실시제제 따따도 그거요 봐 이거도 전에 알아는 저 제접 예배로서 주어 같이 제접 예지기 세마스로 봐 디시도 전에 따디 세와 타다기 된도 아니 예고를 있어야 돼 지가서래 도와 유비치를 쓰려고 하는데 도와 유나 야바르투 매 요거를 쓰려나 따다란데 말해 매 요거를 세계제도 코나 가르고 그러나 매 단다 요거를 해서 고리 제가 균형기 삼로 리고래 디디 매매바 세지 도와 되는데 그거라 아니 매시 차도 도와지 되는데도 안 가와진 곳에 도와래 워데 뭔도 조금 쓰고 뭐라 네바르도 맹원도 조금 세트다 란 전제기 주 나만 데 뭔도 손들에 세지 딘디 미징이고 그요 딘도 잠베다 디 삼로도 코르그레데 네바르도 삼로 코르고에데 가르전스나 다 매나 미준 세트 규티 매나 드부디 용세 말에세 삼로도 레쇼고 요다 매나 미준 세트 드부 딘데 지켜봐라 네바르 또주 딘데 직원도 보고 그래세트 되게자 딘도 잠베다 다 계제디 네 카도라비나 먼저 상관은 상계를 쇼스 때 뭐놈 되고 요래 아니
Yeah.
다다 마체벌 쇼스라나 뭐놈 로버다
Da.
다다 마체벌 쇼스 다다 마투벌 쇼 다다 마체 어디
Matubasho.
뭐놈 로버 차로 요래시
Yeah.
그러지는 다메나 서바요 말이 서바메나 진소 퍼진 주고 냠네 요 말이 디메나 아니 소놈 사세기 싱메베 디메나 다 알아서 상계 고급용 디 인도 바로 도양 상 개발라 다딩 해버도 고요 다 개발 고요 세도 두부 땅에 고르시 계제도 고요 말이 계제 가르고 고르시네 네바도 서버 고미야기 고급적인 디 미디 다 shumane kiranzu tanda ajo samalo daji yorda sambayo stande ji yorda ajo ranjolo da chijun ma do ji yor da dezo samalo tanda lo sharonde tembe dezo ngala tarba kandis jigi da most the jigi yo mari gyuni jimber chetande o ting aran samalo gyuni indirectly den ajo kandis jeje tigdu se samlo di 아니 shumane 달레송스 말라베 제제 땅알아 아니 청주주 고방 되는데 레송 세고 삼로도 레도 고요다 계시슈티 다디 베지 세도 고요사레 메나 민중기 다디 켈렌 사비쇼로 인디 켈렌 고요다 제정가 거진 친구 있으세 거진 도야고 레야디 메야고 중을 때는 메야고 중에디 싱들 때는 중벌을 쓰다 두점배 다 싱디 거는 친구 인슬라고 요래 디나신 아란조 상지주 고방스니디 자친부를 쓰라나 상지주 고방 대행기 한 샘진의 자친부를 그러봐 대행디 나로라 짐바 땅체 소남사야 아니 추림 송제 추림 송바텔라 때니 domsem체바 텔라 때니 소남사야 다 저거 검스도 좀be judge 메나 저거 검니 아니 지부디 산지 고방세 이렇게 시셔요 말봐 녀버도 리셈나로야 아니 섬 코르도 같이 메나 민중이 빼디르다 단다 빼빼세디 단다 빼주바세도 찌르템바다 빼주바선 찌르템바세디르샤 단다디 찌르템바세디 메나 민중이 여와디니디 찌르템나디르샤 아니 디 오마디 아니 빼기도 다르셔.
And so this section here is related to verse number 4, number 104, sorry, talks about the general outline is that it's not an obstruction to merit, is how it's literally said. The enemy is not an obstruction to merit. And then it's this verse 104 is the general explanation of that, which is related to the if there's no presence of a cause, if there's no prior presence of a cause, then the result cannot arise. And then in verse 105 and onwards, it establishes this general understanding through examples. So Gyaltsab, first of all, Gyaltsab, yes, I've read Gyaltsab J. And so so what's being discussed here, it doesn't come through very clearly in Gyaltsab J's, the translation of Gyaltsab J's commentary, what it's called Jesudodok Nyeba, Jesudodok Nyebigu in the commentary, which is the sense. So in debate, when we're debating, then we're involved with the presentation of what are called the three modes of valid syllogism, and within this, the relationship between the sign or the reason, what the kind of proof reason, and the or the sometimes called the sign, and the predicate, which is the thing, which is the sort of quality of the subject to be proved. There has to be there has to, it basically is all sort of predicated on having a relationship between the sign and what we call the predicate. So for instance, when we talk about, there's a classic sort of example syllogism where on a smoky pass, there must be fire because there is smoke. So on a smoky pass, there must be fire because there's smoke. And so in this, what we do is, in the syllogism, you have what's called the three modes are the presence of the sign and the subject, the forward pervasion, and the reverse pervasion. Now, so the forward pervasion in this case is the forward pervasion is related to the sign, which is that there is smoke. On a smoky pass is the subject. There is fire because fire exists because smoke exists. So the pervasion is what has to happen in the forward pervasion is that the sign has to be found always to be found in the predicate. So in this case, if there is smoke, there always has to exist fire. Now, this is not like, now this has a qualifying sort of understanding, which is that we're not talking about smoke and fire which exist at the same time, because if you're on a campfire and then you get a bucket of water and put the fire out and smoke still exists and remains over, and then you see, there's smoke but there's no fire. This is not what we're talking about. What we're talking about, because when we talk about the relationship, which is the main kind of predicate of these syllogisms, what we're talking about is relationship between the sign, and there are two forms of relationship. One is which they are of one entity, the sign and the predicate are of one entity, and the second is that they have a causal relationship. So that, but actually that causal relationship means that the sign, here the sign is the result, and the cause, which is the fire, the result is the smoke, the cause is the fire. And what it is that the fire must have, if there is smoke, then fire must have preceded it. So that's the main sort of thing. But so taking all that technicality, what we have to really understand is, if the cause is not present, doesn't exist, or doesn't proceed in some way, then that is absolutely impossible for a result to arise. So if the cause does not is not present, then the result cannot later arise. And so you must, in order for the result to arise, you must have had its preceding cause, and that is what we call the relationship where if the cause is not present, then the cause is not present, the result doesn't arise. That's what mena michung midrobo. So and then let's bring it into our practice environment, and we often make a prayer, oh, may I attain enlightenment. But we never make a prayer like, may I meet my enemy, may I encounter and have interaction with my enemy. But if we're taking these reasonings, then if there's no enemy, there's no patience, there's no practice of patience. If there's no practice of patience, then there's actually no practice of the six perfections. There's no field that you can't accumulate, you can't practice all of the six perfections if you don't have an enemy, because you can't practice patience, and therefore you can't actually attain enlightenment because you need without the enemy. So the enemy becomes this sort of, it has this sort of relationship in terms of enlightenment. Actually, we have to have some form of enemy. Now, this doesn't mean an enemy who literally kind of beats you or beats you up or seriously harms you. We don't mean it quite like that. But you have to be able to have we need to have a person who gives us the opportunity in order, whether it's large or small, the extent of it, but they have to have someone who gives us the opportunity to practice patience, and so they are in. They may not have the. So we sort of, can sort of almost imagine praying that they, to meet the enemy and have them to help me in order to be able to perform, to engage in the practice of patience. And so what they actually do, whether they do mean to or not, is indirect. They may be indirect, but they help us to ripen the causes for our enlightenment. And so when someone we dislike very much, who we consider to be our enemy, shows up, we say, "Oh, here comes the enemy," but we never say, "Oh, here comes an opportunity to practice." To practice in order. Here comes a practice opportunity to help me attain full enlightenment. We never think like this. In terms of like just a simple relationship between the relationship of smoke, the fire, and then of course the fire is without wood we wouldn't have the fire, and without fire we wouldn't have the smoke. So we should, if we want a fire, we should be grateful to the wood also in that sense. So in this way, in order for us to attain the complete state of Buddhahood, then sentient beings are the field, or the sort of the basis of being able to be able to engage in all of the practices such as the six perfections of giving, ethical discipline, and so forth. So so if there's no enemy, there's no practice of patience, and therefore we can't achieve the result of the Buddhahood. So this syllogism, and so what it does in verse 104 is it's explaining to us just in terms of the relationship of how, if the cause is not present, the result cannot arise, and then it's going to bring an example and establish that relationship.
So this the verse number 104. You all try to think a little bit how this way of thinking is important for a practitioner to see this thing in your enemy, and whenever you think of enemy, and then now this is a big difference. Is me before becoming Buddhist, before becoming a Mahayana practitioner, the way I'm looking at my enemy is this. Now as a Buddhist, I'm looking at this. The way now I'm a Mahayana practitioner, now I look like this. I have to look like this. Otherwise, this opportunity will get wasted. And then I wasted, then it will always, you will see this as an enemy forever, and the suffering never ends. So now here, it is not saying that we need to have an enemy forever. It is saying if we don't see the enemy as an opportunity to overcome all the suffering that in between the personal things you have, which you feel like stress, anxiety, fear, everything, that you have to win. This winning is not like just bullying him or fighting with him. It's more like you try to use the water. I think Simon can help me with this. 제가 자디 아니 삼라다니 군주기 토네 아니 달랐다단지 된담된 병원도 치니 달랐다단지 니 체체 아 군주국권에 파 다윈도 전에 아니 텔레텐지 서버 공부하다 소놈 사야다 아니 텔레텐지 몽발이야 미직을 때니 아니 셈이 아버지 좀 투베이나 쇠바 아버지 검토베 디기 아니 셈진 간다지 통베이나 마음벌 쇠보 검토니 차스 투베이나 콘로스니 땐도 게임에 선도치 다 단다 자와를 달려요만 데 쇠바 아버지 검토베이나 균에 저기 아니 아주 마소네 디르르 지르도 와 가서 그래 쉴드 아버지 선도치 알아 쉴드 아버지 옆에는 아니 지기 도슈고 있네래 지슈고 있네래 맨도 슈고 있네래 그 뒤는 로도 그러고 별로야 지네 뭐보다 내가 더 콘로에 용어요 그래 그러봐 소소 모터 블루투스 지나는 로베는 맨도 전이 다샤서 잡이나야 뭐 맨도 잡서 슬랍지 흐르려요 콜디 셈나로를 시부지 감라디 고구미도 봐 다디 군주부터 다 된다는 거 돈을 라비용도 잠베 아니 드라스 지지 수도 바지도 시부지 현대에디 아니 셔만의 신주 누구에 있을랍도 잠베 다때 자와 니니코 란즈베 로그 타직도 비게 드라스 지지 세워 마도 지기 자와 니네 드라스도 바지 매봐 가데 단 리버데 닝짐도 와 베나 다디 네바치비 둠진기 다디가 네바치비 둠진기 다르라나 아니 조복하시 소수sem다니 왜 조복하시 지기 다가란 수술 네바치비요 야 텔라야 코스 자스밍다도 다 노양 조복슬랍도 와 그러봐 아니 소수에게 빼나 파마선도비지 쉬우 제가 여기 지금 추네바치비는 남산데 콘도사고도 네바치비 제바치고 지냐르 단도 네바 체계유시 엔도 셈나로 도스도 와 컵 야다나 시리도 와다 컵 세가 좋나 봐 아니 지금 컵 야가도 지금 컵 맞아보는 심하지 서울에 섬제 배컵 통도 고란에 배 튜니 배 수고 상만 따르지 야원이지도 가시 서서서 남도 수요 봐 안 가로지네 깨지 시에가 탑스 렵차도 알레 컵 렵차로 해시요 맞아 다 비기네 컵도 스테온데 휴시요 봐 저는 그 휴착을 해서 소소게 셈게 배 남도 그 지그레 삼성 휴 좀 뭐지 대 장물로 다 가르쳐 남도 용색이 시디 가와네도 세도 점배 아니 초도 라운드 좀 버디 그래샤 세도 점배 다 텔려야 아니 산지 좀 되기다 간사 초도 라와요 말에 다스니 초도 라운드 요 말에 지지도 시지마 시군도 점배 신이 고 아니 된담 중원에 네 최담제 로냐바 코랑 중원에 매바 세디 선로도 쓰려고 좀 이게 셈게 네버디 슈치부 시워지 마tam 말레게 봐도 아니 샤바가 란주 세바지 곰대비 있는데 짐바 땅대비 있는데 차례 매지
살레스
차례야 조야 매
조야 매
샤스 오케이 다 디르 지리샤 다 디르 데샤샤고 봐
So in terms of there's two ways to sort of when we encounter an enemy, there are two ways to sort of look at the way in which we view the enemy. One is kind of conventionally, and one is more ultimate. So in a conventional way, we think about and if we are able to I've written my notes are very if so in terms of thinking about merit and accumulating merit and how the patient God, I can't read my writing so the kunsob기 토나 그래 담번이네 kunsob기 토나 shield gosu 그래 디 가나 나 얘기 되네 고수면 얘기 주시 그래 나 담번이네 난서 컨벤셔널 딜라
군주부터는 삼당배나스 군주부터는 삼당배나 아니 자신이디 거린 신부 임바당 텔레 때는 서버 공주 여바당 서버 대 공차나야 니딜 로야고 장차베는 안 대단 대 준비 딱 한대 질레베 있나요 주만내가 한대 질레베 있나요 서버 땜부지 공토야 지기도 부 관계 뭐 세주와
Yeah.
Chigiba. Chigi tabu kanyamba, deni kunji tabu yin sejuba.
Chigi.
Chigi tabu kanyamba, deni kunji tabu yin seju jambe, ko tongba nyi jarwa. Che chigi tongba
Okay.
nyi di tosona, she tadage tengi
Yeah.
ni, tongba nyi toba.
Okay.
Koyo sheba rese, son raba nanshin. Kunzu, mazo, sobaya waju, michigli teni sobaya waju komtona. Ani di chunbe, ni ngaranzo yogi, kandeji 치수 가지고 레벨이 컨디션에 참말로 세번 가지고 검토해지 책을 했으려나 아니 가지고 실기 되지 삼코도 봐.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't read my own writing. So yes, so in terms of this and how we've been talking about, in terms of the encountering our enemy in conventionally way in which we see the enemy, and how if we were able to if we're really able to get that sense that in taking in relation to the enemy, that we're really able to view them in this way of a great field of merit, and being able to practice patience in relation to them, and if we're really able to kind of get a stable stable way of seeing the enemy in that way, then if you could do it in relation to your enemy, then whoever comes, we at some point you'll be able to develop this so that you have the sense that whatever situation comes with people, however much of an enemy they are, I will be able to, with all situations and all kinds of types of people, I will be able to practice patience in relation to them. When there's a reasoning which is used in relation to understanding emptiness, and it says that if you can understand emptiness in relation to one phenomena, then once you've done that, then you can very easily, it's almost immediately able to understand the emptiness of any other phenomena. So in the same way, if you're able to practice patience and view the enemy in this way of seeing them as an opportunity to create merit, etc., and then you will be able to do that in relation to any being that comes, and then it's like a shield. It becomes like a shield for you, like a protective shield. If you have this shield, then whether people throw stones at you, try to knife you, or shoot you with a gun, then you'll have the courage that it's going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. And actually, what will happen is that there will be a reduction in your fear and also your anger. So if you had for instance, if you had a bulletproof car, then even if people were to try and fire at your bulletproof car, then you wouldn't have great fear, and there would be, in some sense, less anger inside of you. Then that's in the conventional sense. Then in the ultimate sense, then here we're talking more about looking at the enemy, and the way that we perceive enemies is as them kind of being self-substantiated, self-instituting, like solidly out there, and then we have to really look at whether that is the case or not, and we have to sort of come to a decisive understanding, that one-pointed understanding, completely clear understanding that it is not possible that they can exist in that self-instituting way. How to say? And so you're sort of can I say? Again, I can't remember right. For instance, you're reducing that sense of them being sort of self-instituting and self-substantial from their own side as a kind of enemy. And for instance, like if in terms of viewing these things in this sort of very solid, substantial way, just in a very simple example, where let's say we go for an injection, and before we go to have an injection at the hospital, then we sort of think beforehand, oh, it's going to really hurt, and our kind of mental, our concept, a kind of overactive mind will think it's going to really hurt, and then even some people sort of get really tense or kind of shake when they're about to have the injection. But then afterwards, when it's over, and then the fear is kind of gone, the mental kind of anxiety and overactive mind is gone. Then we feel, well, it wasn't that bad at all, kind of thing. So we sort of make it into something much bigger than it is, and and so in terms of, so when we work with our enemy, to see how we grasp at them to be self-instituting, solidly substantial, independent, sort of grasping at that. And we then work to understand that that's not the way they actually exist. And eventually we have this understanding that this is kind of connected to the understanding that all phenomena have one taste, which is the taste of lacking this kind of either substantial existence or true existence. And until we have this kind of until we have this understanding, this kind of underpinning, then however our practices of the 6 perfections really don't reach completion. They don't have great strength or sort of penetrating qualities. They're not complete until they're really underpinned with this understanding of the way in which phenomena, because I suktup mayimba demba matrobadoshi. So the enemy, the very person ourselves, is not self-sufficient, substantially existent. The enemy is not like that, self-instituting, and they're all of one taste. And then when we have this, really our practices of things like the 6 perfections can be complete.
Question jiduda, and the big jisha. While Adisha was accumulating merit and practicing patience, the other person was accumulating a lot of negative karmas. Especially if Adisha was an enlightened being, if Adisha was with that level of the realization, was it compassionate act to allow that person to continue act angrily? That's a debate. Adisha didn't allow. This anger thing is nobody needs to allow it. It comes. So Adisha was so kind to take him, that person. It's if he will be spending time with other people, if he is going to spend with the other people, and then he will annoy so many other people and create more negative karmas. So Adisha took with him, he annoys some of people, friends of Adisha, and mostly Adisha. So Adisha, we have saying in the, now it's a good time to Simon, to read the verse that I sent you earlier.
Oh yeah. Yes.
So it's the first chapter.
So the verse is the last verse of Rinpoche sent me earlier, the last verse of the first chapter, and it says, it's the last verse of the first chapter of the Bodhicitta Avatara, and it says, "I bow down to the body of those in whom the sacred precious mind is born. I seek refuge in that source of joy who brings happiness even to those who bring harm."
So
it's
Adisha,
the first verse, it's the last verse of the first chapter. So
Adisha is very kind. So if we are in the right hand, but we, of course, we will accumulate negative karmas, then it's more like saying it's worth accumulating that kind of merit. Somehow we are going to accumulate so much negative karmas with or without Adisha. But with Adisha, somehow we are going to make a strong connection with the great being. So that one day there is one of the greatest hope. That's why we're saying, even going to the circular manifestation of the holy being, somehow there is some impact. That's the one way of thinking. Yeah. So yeah.
May I
Yeah.
ask something
Sure.
to what Rinpoche just said? In that whole story, and maybe in your explanation afterward, it seems like it's all about on the side of the person who's receiving the harm, and then that person practicing patience. So if we have taken Bodhisattva vow and want to help sentient being, in that moment, what am I doing for the other person while I practice patience?
Mm-hmm. The last thing I didn't get you.
So in a situation like this, I want to practice patience, but I also have Bodhisattva vows where I want to help sentient beings. So in that moment, what is it that I'm doing to benefit the other person who is acting to harm me? I practice patience, I accumulate merits, but what am I doing for the other person to help them?
The good thing is don't let them harm you. It's like being very skillful mother. The mother will never let the child to hit his own mother. But child, when they go crazy, they will hit. But mother will never let the child go, and she will feel stupid if she gets angry towards her kid. Even she beats that child, she will feel very sad afterwards. So with this kind of a bodhicitta, we hold the sentient beings with our arms forever, and then one of the number one thing is don't let them harm you. Do your best, and sometimes even you need to, as His Holiness Dalai Lama is saying, we have to take action towards their behavior, but not become against to the person. So this we need to keep in our mind, I think. Then we are a very, very skillful Bodhicitta practitioner. Okay, thank you. Chamba Chumbi here?
Yes, Rinpoche.
Okay, dedication, please.
Sure. Having thoroughly investigated in accord with all that I've heard, day and night, through the four reasonings, mind born of reflection on these topics of contemplation, may this discernment settle all doubts. In the land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. In all my lives, never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma. By completing the qualities of the grounds and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri who knows reality, and just like Samantabhadra as well. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with a dedication praised as the best by all the gone beyond victorious ones of the 3 times in order to have good conduct. With my heart going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rinpoche.